The modular buildings are some of my favorite sets that LEGO makes, hands down. And while the modern cities that you can make with them are really cool, I personally want to make a medieval fantasy-inspired modular city, so today we're going to be doing just that. We'll build a bakery, a tavern, and even a magician's shop, all with detailed interiors and minifigures to go with them. So, welcome to episode 1 of building a modular fantasy city in LEGO. Now, I personally really love how shelf cities look. If you aren't familiar with the concept, they're just LEGO cities that are built onto a shelf instead of a table. In particular, I think High Tea Toys has a really good example of what shelf cities can look like. And that's what I'm going to aim to do in this series. Some other inspirations for this project come from Slim Jim Lego and his Medieval Harbor project. It's a personal favorite of mine, and I hope to do something like his. Both of their stuff is going to be linked below, and I'd highly recommend you check them out. And then finally, the last inspiration for this project is none other than Cheesy Studios, who I'm sure you're already familiar with. His Building Minecraft in LEGO series is one of the best on YouTube, and if I can just capture 1% of his skill, I'll be happy. So with all of that out of the way, let's begin. We'll be starting with a 16 by 32 base plate. This is the same size as some of the half modulars that LEGO makes, but we're going to be using it horizontally instead. Starting with the base plate, I'll throw down some dark tan to represent the muddy city streets. And then once we have that done, we can add in the foundation or blueprints for all 3 buildings. What I've basically done here is I've just marked out where the buildings are going to go, and I've thrown down a couple of studs so that the buildings can easily be taken on and off of the base plates. As for the street, I'm doing a very basic cobbled path made up of these 5 pieces. Around the cobbled path, I've added in some olive green slopes and plates just to add some greenery to the city. Okay, so now that the terrain is done for now, let's start with the first of the 3 buildings, the bakery. But first, let's take a quick look at the bakery's shopkeeper. She's got a very cheerful expression and a really beautiful elf hairpiece from an old CMF. For as simple as this character is, I think it turned out looking perfect for this MOC's vibe. I'm going for a more kind of goofy, cheerful fantasy vibe, and I think this is going to work really nicely here. Speaking of which, here's the front of the bakery. For this building, we'll be using brown and tan in the walls. I've also made a brick-built door with some dark orange accents, and I think it looks really solid. To this, we'll add in some walls to each side, continuing the Tudor pattern. But the nice thing is about this being a modular building is that we really don't have to worry much about how the walls look on the side because they're going to be covered by another building later on anyways, so it doesn't really matter. Now while the MOC is opened up like this, I think it's a good opportunity for us to make the interior. We've got a little table with a pie and a pretzel, and then we've also got some barrels of baguettes as well. Along with that, we've got a little counter for the shopkeeper to stand behind, and this pamphlet on the wall showing the price of every single item. Once that's all in place, we'll add in the other wall and this support beam to finish off the first floor. Now, if you're wondering why I'm not placing a wall in the back, it's simply because I don't want to. I decided I wanted the modulars to be in the dollhouse style, where you can see the full interiors from the side. Maybe at some point I'll switch the MOC to being fully enclosed, but for the time being, I really love how this looks. Anyways, now it's time for the second floor. Here's the outer wall that I've made with some tan masonry bricks and some more windows. Then we can add in the dark tan floor that I've made removable, and it also has a ladder so that the shopkeeper can get up to her bedroom. In the bedroom, we've got a carpet with a game board on top of it, and this bed that is built with a very basic snot technique. Finishing the second floor with 2 walls on the outside, and a map of the surrounding wilderness. Now all that's left to do is place the roof on top. The roof I've made in a very similar style to the ones found in the medieval town square, so they're probably already familiar to you. It's very simple, but I think they work nicely here. With that being said, we can now just drop the bakery onto the left side of the base plate. With the shopkeeper and a customer inside, it feels really alive, and I'm just super proud of how this building ended up looking. But as a bakery goes, it's definitely missing like a kitchen and oven area, so I might revamp this in another video. So now that the bakery is all done, it's time to build the largest of the 3 buildings, the tavern. But first, let's take a look at the barkeep. She's got the classic peasant woman parts from LEGO Kingdoms, and I've also given her this dark red hairpiece that I recently bought, and I think it matches her face print really nicely. To go along with her, we've also got 2 patrons of the tavern, both dressed in that stereotypical Hollywood Viking clothing. Again, I'm going for a more goofy fantasy vibe in this MOC, So I think these guys fit right in with that. As for the tavern, I've built the bottom floor so that it has a nice offset window that gives the outside facade of the building a bit more depth and texture. And instead of a regular door, they've got this piece of cloth hanging above the frame. My idea is that this tavern is a frequent stop for the Vikings that come into town, so the barkeep has decorated as such. On the inside of the bar, we've got plates of meats and drinks, along with a barrel table for people to stand around. I'm really happy with how this bar looks. I like the gold and dark brown contrast. I think it's a really nice color combination. Then we can add in the other half of the front wall, which gives us a ton more height and some Viking details on the outside and inside. These runic prints from the Viking village are just perfect for this build, and so are these old Viking shields from the classic early 2000s Viking theme. Luckily, I've got 4 of them, so the inside has got some different shields on display, along with a pair of axes hung up high. As for the roof of the build, I've kept it incredibly simple. Just some lightly decorated plates attached to each other, and they're supported by this beam on the inside that can be removed easily just like in the bakery. Now you may be wondering, where are the walls of the tavern? And that's where the other 2 buildings come into play. If we drop the tavern into the mock, you'll notice that it matches up really nicely with the bakery, and it even has some studs for us to hang the bounty board up. This to me was a necessary detail for like any fantasy tavern, so I'm really glad we were able to fit this into the mock. Now obviously to do the wall on the left, we've got to build the last building, the magician's shop. The magician here I've made with a bunch of goofy looking parts that I think work really well together to create this eccentric magician who mans the shop. Now, I've always wanted to use this Harry Potter sorting hat backwards, but if you try to do it normally, the hat just covers way too much of the face. So I took this small piece of tape and placed it inside of the hat. Surprisingly, it now just fits perfectly on his head without any problems. To go with the magician, we also have his apprentice, a small wolf-like creature that helps the shopkeeper with all the potion brewing and the forging of magical armor. Alright, so now that you've met the figs, it's time to start the build. The bottom floor of the shop is going to be the forge area with a furnace and a couple of other things for sale, like a barrel of magical gems and some enchanted weapons. Around the side, we have the wall facing the inside of the tavern, so I've placed down some decorations for it, like a fireplace with some logs under it and a pot of stew. Along with that, we've also got a portrait of a king and the fireplace that has some nice decorative stonework and wooden supports next to it. I am really happy with how this ended up looking, and it looks so good inside of the tavern. Moving up to the second floor of the magician's shop, we've got the storage room, and it's just jam-packed with different items. There's a petrified gold dragon, a suit of enchanted armor, potions, and even more stuff. Before we place it on top though, we've got to add the outside Tudor wall that I've made with one of the rarer blue colors in my collection. I don't actually know the name of this color, but I think it looks really nice in this case. Now, since we've placed a furnace and fireplace below, that obviously means we're going to need to make a chimney to make it realistic. I've built this one that I think will fit nicely, and it accommodates for both the second floor and the roof. The second floor has a little cutout for it, and so does the roof, so it just slides right into place. And now we can add the magician's shop into the mock. We're almost done, but we've got a couple more small details to add on the outside, like this small printed sign by Cult Bricks that says Market, and another suit of enchanted armor outside of the magician's shop. With all of the minifigures posed in and outside of the buildings, I am just so happy with how this mock turned out. It leaves us a ton of room to expand in the future, and the fact that I can display this from the street view or from the interiors is just really satisfying. I'm so happy with how this turned out. These are easily the best looking medieval houses that I've ever made, and it's got me excited to just continue to work on this city. Which, speaking of, if you have any suggestions for future buildings or really any ideas for the city at all, please feel free to let me know in the comments. I might even do a community poll to see what you all think I should do next. Right now, though, I think it'd be cool to add a city watchtower next to the magician's shop, or maybe even a small outdoor kitchen to the left of the bakery. I don't know though, let me know what you think, and if you enjoyed this video, why not subscribe? I'll have the next episode of this series out sometime next month, so stay on the lookout for that. But until then, as always, thank you so much for watching.